This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I have 6:30 and we have a quorum, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this the June 7th regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. And I will take a roll call, and I'll just go down and say your names, just say here, and then we'll record who's absent. Linda Aird, I see that you're here, yes?
Here.
Okay. Diane TJP, you're here. Okay.
I'm here.
Stacy Smith?
Here.
She's here. Howard Hoover's here, and Jim Kaysen is here. Everybody, welcome Stacy to our first meeting, and we'll get all the way. We'll get through this. Okay. That means we are missing Freth, and Amadeo has resigned from the board. And good, our council liaison is here now as well. Okay, I will, at this point in time, I can open it up for citizen comments. If any citizens who are not applicants out there have anything to say, please raise your hand or make a noise. Actually, I don't even know if there are any out there. I don't see any out there today. Looks like everybody here is either a participant, city staff, or an applicant. So I will go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, the only thing on the consent agenda has two sets of minutes ready to be approved. Do I have a motion, or are there any corrections or discussion that needs to take place over those?
Just as a reminder, Mr. Chair, the second set of minutes are not in your packet. Alice did not complete those.
That's right. Okay, sorry. So it's just the first set, which is January 28th, the special called joint meeting. And do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kaysen, second by Mr. Hoover. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. They're approved unanimously. The next item on the agenda is comments from council liaison. Ms. Marion, do you have anything you'd like to say to us tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if you had a chance to get to receive the message I sent earlier, Mr. Chair, but there's one topic that I just wanted to clarify for members of the board. While we certainly appreciate Roy's willingness to play interference between emails from committee members and members of, and the chair or the vice chair or myself, I just wanted to briefly remind members of the committee that if something comes up with a conflict about being able to attend a meeting or anything of that nature, please send notice of those sorts of things to the chair and copy me, or you can send them directly to me, either way. Again, while we really appreciate Roy and his willingness to help get those emails to the right folks, we certainly recognize how very busy he is, and just want to, as much as possible, honor his time and other commitments to the city. So just wanted to remind members of the committee about that and ask for your assistance in following the kind of that proper channel when things come up. Other than that, I don't think I have any additional comments at this time, but thank you, Chair.
All right. In that case, we'll move directly into the public hearing and action. First on the agenda is,
Sorry.
oops, go ahead.
Sorry, I did have one other thing. I wanted to welcome our newest member, Stacy Smith, to the Board of Adjustment. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your willingness to serve. And
Thank
for those
you
of you
very
who don't
much. I
know,
appreciate it.
absolutely, yes. We look forward to getting to know you a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then for those of you who don't know, we have lost another member of the Board of Adjustment, and so we will be seeking to replace Mr. Amadeo Perez, hopefully at the next council meeting, so that the next time the Board of Adjustment meets, we'll have another new member. So don't know, Chair, if you wanted Ms. Smith to say anything before we get rolling?
I won't put her on the spot like that. No, that's okay. But if I will say that if anybody does have any suggestions or anybody that they know that would be willing to serve or is interested in serving, shoot their names to me, please. Okay, we'll move on to the public hearing and action. First on the list is 21-1841-ZON-VAR, which is an application for variance granting relief from the requirements of sections 22.10 of chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to allow a portion of a type E wood privacy fence to be 8 feet high in height at 21400 Sierra Trail, which is in Barkay Ranches, Plat 9, Lot 9046. At this time, I'll pass it to Roy for the staff presentation.
This one's fairly easy to explain compared to most. The applicant owns a corner lot. She was adjacent to 2 properties, only one of which previously had a residence built on it. The one to the north was separated from her residence by an incredibly thick set of vegetation, so she had all the privacy she needed. However, fairly recently, the other property that she's adjacent to started construction on a new residence, and that residence, like hers, is fairly close to that side property line. So she is looking to erect a fence to try and reclaim as much as her privacy as she can get. And she asserts that she would be better served by an 8-foot fence. Hopefully, as I always, I try to include everything reasonably relevant or that you might find relevant, and then leave it to you to determine what is actually relevant. But if you have any questions, I'm not sure there's anything else I can add.
Okay. At this time, I will allow the applicant to present their case, and we are all here ready to listen. Do we have the applicant here today?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I am here. Thank you.
Okay. All right. This Birchill, is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
It is correct.
And it's all you.
Yes, we were looking to put up a fence. Originally, a 6-foot fence was what we were looking for, which was pretty much standard code for Lago. And as we were measuring on that far side that's adjacent to the lot that they're now building on, we have enough of a grade on our lot that goes about 14 to 15 inches from, if you're facing the house, from right to left. So when you put up a 6-foot fence along that side that is adjacent to the new lot, it actually doesn't really come up far enough, because that 15 inches difference makes a 6-foot privacy fence just come up to sort of a little bit into the window. So you can see right into our master bedroom, 2 windows in the master bedroom and 1 into the master bath. And since they've actually started putting up the lot next door, also on the other side of that property is their bedrooms, because the garage is on the far side of the house. So our garages are on the outsides with both of our bedrooms on the insides. And with that downward slope, it makes a 6-foot fence a little less desirable than say an 8-foot fence would be for privacy. You know, certainly when you get up in the morning, you know, when you get out of the shower, that sort of thing. So we were requesting an 8-foot just along that side. The back and the other side that's going to connect the back property line to the house would be 6-foot fences. Our neighbors behind us, that's their garage. There is one window there, but we do have considerably more space than we would on the new side with the new building. So 6-foot for the back is completely fine. We're far enough apart. That's not their bedrooms. But we were just hoping that we could get one on the new side with the adjacent with the new building. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions or anything additional that you would like to know, perhaps that I could answer.
Okay. If that's at this point, what we do is we'll open it up to a public hearing, and we don't have a whole lot of public here today. So any discussion by board members, from the board members that have any questions or comments regarding this? I have one, and I'll start. Ms. Birchill, were you given a list of the 7 conditions that are required for a variance? It usually comes with the application.
Yes, I do believe I recall reading those.
Okay, all right. And you understand that we have to have essentially you have to meet all 7 of those requirements to be granted a variance.
Let's see here. I don't actually have a copy of the code with me. I am about 1,400 miles away from home right now, so I did bring my packet.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's all right. Does anybody else have any questions? I wanted to make sure that you had it, you were aware of them.
I did see them when I filled out the initial variance paperwork. Yes, they did print out along with the packet.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions yes, Ms. Johnson Pin.
I didn't see any notations or any feedback from neighbors or anything. Did we get any feedback from the neighborhood with regard to the request in the 200 feet affected zone?
I can count them up real quick. 1, 2, 3. We had 4 responses, all in favor.
Okay.
For this one, I had 4 responses for the other one. I just said, maybe I didn't print them out
I'm
or
sorry,
something.
you're right. I've scrolled down too far. You are correct. We had no responses on this one at all.
Oh,
I did speak with my neighbors behind me and the builder of the new house to the left of my property, if you're looking at it. And I did speak with them saying, hey, we were thinking of putting up a fence. We have filed a variance for an 8-foot fence. We did ask if that was an issue. He said no. He goes, if you're putting up a fence, I'm actually going to match whatever you put up along the back line. And then the other property lines said they were planning on putting up a fence as well. And then Tim and Deb Jacobson, who live behind us, were fine with it because they were actually going to extend the fence down theirs because their backyard is completely open to Sierra now, because that lot that they're building on, they took every single tree down except for 2. So there's no privacy for their backyard, and obviously no privacy between us and the next house, because the only couple trees that are left are like these 2 little cedars that are on the front side of the property where the fence would not be. So I did speak with both. I realize that doesn't really help because they didn't answer, but I did actually reach out to both parties.
a question with regard to the builder said, when you mentioned that you were going to be requesting the variance for the 8-foot fence, and as I understood you to say, the builder said that whatever you put up, he was going to match it on all sides of his. Does that
He's
mean
going to put up the same fence. So we have the 8-foot section that we share, and then there's a 6-foot on my back and a 6-foot on the other side. He's going to match the same fence style and type and put a 6, obviously apply for the permit, etc. But put a 6-foot fence along the back, and then the other side that's not, not a shared property line with my home. So he was planning on putting up a fence anyway, so didn't have any issue with me putting up a fence and had no problem with an 8 foot based on the discussion we had, because he was actually going to put up a fence anyway, is what he said. Once the house was complete, they were going to file the permit for a fence.
Do you know if the house is sold, is this a spec home, or are there owners that would be concerned as well?
I don't know that there's owners. I don't think so. They never put a for sale sign up that I'm aware of, because they're building the two homes on the same street. So, you know, same side as mine, and then across the street and over 2 or 3, they've started building it. He didn't seem to indicate that it had an owner already or someone that purchased it, but it could be, but it didn't seem that way based on the way he was talking. But I certainly couldn't say for sure whether or not there is someone that is planning on buying that from the builder once it's complete.
I understand.
How much space is there? This is essentially on the back side of your house, is that correct?
The 8 foot would actually be, if you're looking at my house, it would be on the left-hand side. So if you're standing on Sierra Trail looking at the front of the house, it would be the left-hand side of the home.
Okay, but your driveway doesn't go onto Sierra Trail, it goes onto Frontier,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how much space is there between the back of your house, well, the side of your house and the property line?
7 feet.
How much?
7 feet.
7 feet.
Give or take, it might be 7 feet and a couple of inches, but it's pretty much 7 feet.
Mr. Chair, I did look up the permit. There's no property owner other than the contractor for that
Okay.
permit.
And I hate the way we do these houses on corners that wind up with these tiny little lines along either okay.
I do have to say, I wish mine was more centered. The house was already poured, the foundation and framed when I purchased it, so I didn't have any say on where to place the house.
I understand, it's not your fault. It's just the way we do things. Diane.
Rob? One more question. Is it possible, what's the dimensions of your window that's there? I think I read it, but I forgot going back through the width of the window.
There's
Length of the
3
window.
windows. Yeah, there's 3 windows on that side of the house. The 2 in the master bedroom are sort of your standard, you know, double hung window, what you would consider just a normal one. The one in the bathroom is wider, but not quite as deep. And those, I think, are what we would consider like casement windows. They slide right to left, as opposed to up and down like openings. So you have 2 in the master that are normal double hungs, and then the one in the bathroom, I would have to say, is probably 1.5 width of a regular window, but not quite as tall because the bathtub is there, so it doesn't go quite as far down. But it's still 1.5 times a regular window, I'd say.
And are they regular windows, or are they windows that have the waves in them, that since it's in a bathroom, and it's clear glass windows?
Clear glass windows.
And is there 7 feet is room for plantings? Is it possible for you to put a tree or a flowering shrub in front on that side of your fence? And then also that there's a grade. I went from, what did you say, 6 inches to 15 inches on your house? And
It's 7 inches to 22 inches. So it's about 13, 14 inches.
Difference, and that grade continues on into the next lot, is what I'm seeing on the map. And so individuals in that lot would be looking up, so the effectiveness of the 6 foot fence is going to be greater than, and a visual line is going to be greater than 6 feet. And so there's, even though it may come up to only cover 14 inches of your window, from your neighboring, it's going to cover more visually. And the possibility of planting shrubbery, so you would actually, I mean, I would think that's flowers and stuff out your window as opposed to putting fence. That would seem to be a possibility
We did
considered
consider
or not?
that. Yeah, we did consider that. As a matter of fact, we were talking with a couple of friends who had just done something similar, more like around their pool in Cedar Park, on how to get some privacy. Our only situation with that was if we plant shrubs and everything in front of those windows, I only get direct sunlight on that side of the house or the opposite side of the house. So morning you get this, or afternoon sun. I get no direct sun into my living room or anything else. So the only places I get sun is that side of the house in the afternoon. So to plant something in front of the window so that you don't get like any sunlight in there or have to close the windows, we would prefer not to do that. Understand if that's, you know, the council's decision on how to do that, then we will obviously work with it. We just didn't really want to block the sun, honestly, because it's the only place we get it. We get the morning from 9 to 11 on the guest side of the house, and then on our side we only get it in the afternoon. So we were trying not to block.
Okay.
Yes,
Mr. Kaysen.
Cover the 7 points.
Yeah. You know, one of the problems with granting a variance is that you have to prove to us that all 7 of these conditions are satisfied by your problem. And it may be a flaw with our application, you know, that we don't actually require, but we say to do that, to you know, to address each one of these conditions. The main condition that's the hardest to address is that you have to show that your property is unique. It's not like other properties in the area that's causing you what would be called an undue hardship. Your undue hardship, obviously, is the privacy issue. We've already learned that privacy is not an inherent right, but you know, it's a hardship to you because you don't have it. So you have a hardship, but the land has to be causing that. In the way the land causes it has to be unique. Slopes are not unique in Lago Vista. We've got them all over town. So you can't really use slope as an issue. And it's really hard for us to grant a variance if you can't satisfy all these 7 conditions. I mean, in fact, the law says we can't grant it unless you do.
Okay. All right. Well, I assumed that, you know, being that every property is unique, that grade, obviously I would prefer to do a 6-foot fence. Honestly, from a cost perspective and everything else, a 6-foot fence is preferable. Just given that my lot slopes that way, and we thought about building up, you know, the ground, it's not possible because it would just slide right into the next lot. You'd have to put up a retaining wall and all these other things come to try to raise that in order for a 6-foot fence to work. So true. I mean, you know, slopes in Lago Vista are everywhere. You know, we're in hill country. That's part of it. I assumed just the topography of every lot would possibly rate as being unique in the fact that everyone might have a different problem or situation when trying to address the fence issue because everyone's property is slightly different. Excuse me. So, but I understand what you're saying. If unfortunately that doesn't meet the 7 requirements, then that would be tough if it's law to, if that doesn't meet the requirements of a hardship or a unique situation. I can certainly understand, but I interpreted that to be different, I guess, than what it is.
We've got quite a bit of precedent already on these types of cases.
Yeah, and I hear the same thing that Mr. Kaysen hears, and that is what the reasoning is basically slopes and privacy, and slopes is a tough one to make in Lago Vista to prove your slope is different than anybody else's slope, and I mean, in fact, we have a great example right between 2 of the members here of this board. Ms. Smith and I are neighbors. She lives behind me. It runs uphill from my house to her house. The difference between my foundation and her foundation is probably 8 feet. And then she has a 2-story house. So I could put up a 25-foot fence in my backyard and she can still sit on her patio and look into the, look and see everything we do. So it's privacy in all, with all these hills around is not just, I'm afraid it just doesn't cut it. And it's not the real reasoning for the variances. And but I mean, so
And I understand. I totally understand.
it both having an example and great sympathy. But although we're great friends and good neighbors, so it's not a problem. But anyhow,
yeah, I totally appreciate the example, and I understand. For me, it's more of a proximity too. Like their house is once again so close. I don't know how close Stacy's house is to yours. If I was 20 feet away from the house next to me, I'd be, or 25 feet, I'd be like, okay, you know, I'll get it there.
I get it. I get it.
You know?
It's and that was my frustration with the way they lay out some of these lots sometimes. And I was looking down at the topography of yours. Okay, anybody else from the board? Okay. Now,
I think Diane has a question.
oh, so there she is. Hi, Diane. Go ahead.
There's another option I was thinking of to ask if you had considered it with regard to the bedroom and the light and so on. Is it possible for the top down sort of blinds that come down for that to increase your sense of privacy? So that if you only dropped your top down blinds down 8 or 10 inches, then you would have the light coming in, and that's another cosmetic sort of thing that you might be able to do to feel more private.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. The only hesitation on my part is the house is only 4.5 years old, and I just paid to have the whole house blinds done when I moved in. So they're actually not old and they're in pretty good shape. So I would have to basically it would be taking down blinds that are fine to then pay to have more blinds. But if I didn't have blinds, that would be an excellent option. I'd be like, actually one I hadn't thought of. But I would basically have to repay for blinds, and because we want the fence either way, we want to put up the stone patio. We're going to have dogs. We'd like to plant some vegetables so, you know, deer aren't eating them. So there's more to the reason of having the fence. Appreciate that. Like I said, if it doesn't work, then, you know, I like your idea of what can we plant out there. Maybe we can find something. I don't know. We thought we'd start here, obviously the 8-foot being exactly what we were hoping for, but if that doesn't happen, we'll see what else we can come up with to sort of help that problem.
Okay. Anybody have a motion?
Have we gone over like the 7 points? The committee, has it gone over the 7 points as far as?
I think we can, and this is one of the reasons why I like to make motions in the affirmative, is when if you vote to deny, if you vote to approve it, you believe all 7 points have been met. And if you believe that it has, if you vote to deny it, then state a reason as far as one of the points not being met. That, I think, that just gives us the cleanest record, I believe. So it's going to sound a little funny, Ms. Birchhill, but what I'm looking for is either somebody or I will make the motion to approve your variance, but you could still wind up with a denial or even a unanimous denial. I just like to make the motions in the affirmative, so that if we do vote to deny it, everybody gives you at least one reason as to why. Fair
Understood.
enough?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, if nobody else will make the motion, I'll make the motion as to whether or not we approve this, make a motion to approve this request for variance on 21-1841-ZON-VAR All in favor? Oh, we need a second. Does anybody want a second? And you may
What
not
was
get
your
a second.
motion, Rob? What did you,
I will always move to approve. And even if I think, and I may vote to deny it, but I always vote to approve so that if we say deny, I want to be able to give a reason. Okay. If there's no second, then it automatically dies on the vine. Is that correct, Ms. Silvera?
The motion does die. You can take another motion if there's one to be made.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else want to make another motion? Okay. Well, we did something on the record, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we deny it. Any seconds to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is that all opposed? Okay. It's a unanimous denial. I would like to state just for the record that I don't believe that the burden was met to show that this particular lot was unique to this, or this particular problem was unique to this lot. I think this happens a lot all over Lago Vista, as well as I don't believe a hardship was stated other than a lack of privacy, which I don't believe is a substantial enough explanation, and that well, that's good. That's two of them. That's good enough. Anybody else want to state any other reasons? Mr. Kaysen?
Rob, before we leave this topic, and I think I've cleared this with Aaron, I think we owe the applicant, I believe that there is some activity with P&Z to try to amend the ordinance and perhaps in some cases allow an 8-foot fence. Maybe even change the way we grant variances. Yeah, I don't know the what the status of it is, but I was like thinking maybe Roy could speak to that a little bit.
Yes, sir. It's advertised for a first draft at the June 24th special call meeting. You could probably expect something to be brought to council in either August or September.
What are we talking about, Roy? An amendment to the ordinance that would allow 8-foot fences in certain cases?
Well, it would be a comprehensive amendment to the fence ordinance. That's one aspect of it, but it has quite a bit more to it than that.
Okay. So, and at that time, should the law, and clearly, if the law ever changes, Ms. Birchhill, you're very welcome, and we would encourage you to go ahead and reapply.
I can even share the drafts if you want to send me an email.
Okay, that would be great.
Because actually she may want to take part in the process. I mean, there will be a public hearing. And,
absolutely.
She would be welcome to speak.
That would be great. I would really appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm going to move us on to keep us out of trouble here because we aren't really we really can't discuss that anymore because it'd be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, I believe. But that's true. The law changes, you can always come back.
Okay.
Okay. And we encourage citizen participation in everything. All right. Motion was passed to deny the variance. And that concludes our public hearing and action on that issue. And we'll move on to the next issue, which is 21-1845-ZON-VAR. Application for variance granting relief from the requirements of section 5.40 and 22 of chapter 14 of the Lago Vista Code of Ordinances to allow a type E wood privacy fence with the required rear yard setback of a double frontage and or through lot on 20801 High Drive, Country Club Estates, section 9, lot 255. Roy, if you'd like to take over and give us your presentation.
Yes, sir. This is unfortunately a way too common occurrence in Lago Vista. We have an inordinate number of double frontage lots and some even 3 and more frontage lots, which can get real cumbersome. You know, there are 2 basic issues that we confront when you're dealing with fences on double frontage lots. One is aesthetics, to make sure that there's some level of uniformity in how these things are treated. The other has to do with safety for, you know, garages or driveways that are adjacent to these fences that are in theory way too close to the right of way. That being the case, Boggy Ford and High Drive are kind of a special case. You know, even though there's 2 vacant lots adjacent to this property, the chances of somebody intentionally putting a driveway on Boggy Ford Road are inordinately slim because of the traffic and the hazards involved. In fact, you know, quite frankly, the city engineer has brought up about coming up with some kind of ordinance to prohibit people from putting driveways on Boggy Ford Road. And although that might be a little difficult, we certainly don't expect to see many people do that. Regarding the aesthetics, quite frankly, there's a fairly random and eclectic collection of the way fences are being done in and around that area anyway. There aren't a whole lot of them that match. While our preference might be to do something that's not site obstructing, to be overly cautious, the reality is that has very little to do with the appearance on Boggy Ford Road. I'm done unless there's any questions.
Okay. Mr. Kaysen.
Roy, she had a picture in there of a fence that was obviously out of compliance, and I looked. I think that house was built after the ordinance. So, in fact, I think it was built since I've been sitting on this board, and I've never heard a request for a variance from it. There are numerous other fences up and down Boggy Ford that are out of compliance.
Yes, sir. And let me
position on these.
Well, there was a provision in the old ordinance that says, you know, double frontage lots will have to meet the requirements of 2 front yards. It never specifically said that includes fences. The ordinance amendment, and as a result, predecessors before I got here had approved a number of these fences, and the building official kept doing that after I arrived. When I became aware of that, I wrote an ordinance amendment specifically added that the phrase that includes fence requirements in the definition of the double frontage lot setback. So it's not that the ordinance changed, but that clarification did not exist prior to those other 2 fences being permitted that I mentioned in the staff report. In my opinion, they shouldn't have been permitted in the past. They were.
Ms. Hare.
Don't we have to take into consideration the precedence of, for example, that fence that I noticed that was just down the street the Southern Craftsman fence, and it seemed to be very recent. I think that might be the one that Mr. Casey is referring to. And it's, since it is so recent, don't we have to honor the precedents that it somewhat has been established already?
Well, if it was built and they didn't get a permit and it's not in compliance, that's not precedence of anything. That just means they haven't been caught yet.
Okay, good point. That's a good point. Because that fence has not come before the board since it's been built, I know. So that is a good point. They probably haven't.
Well, it's not clear that whether it was a violation or non-conforming. Right now, it's clearly non-conforming.
Mhm.
Ms. Marion?
There's an ordinance amendment that was passed after that fence was permitted. Both of them, actually.
Roy, do you have any idea of the timing on when this? So, I mean, I assume you're going to want to make all driveways on those similar lots come out on High Drive, because backing out and pulling onto Boggy Ford would be a nightmare, the way they're building houses along there.
We
Is that correct?
certainly don't anticipate anybody ever asking for a driveway on Boggy Ford. And the ordinance amendment that you're talking about,
Yeah.
the clarification, what I call it, was adopted in January of 2019.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that.
Right.
You had said that the city engineer was putting together an ordinance to essentially force everybody to put their driveway onto High Drive rather than Boggy.
Yeah, he asked about that. I'm not so sure. I mean, he can certainly discourage it, and there may be, I can't imagine it being a zoning ordinance. I'll put it to you that way. It may appear somewhere else in the ordinance, but you know, right now, I think he's addressing a non-existent problem.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Hoover, did I see your hand up?
No, I was pointing to Shailene, but I do have a question for Roy. Okay, are they ever going to consider changing or updating this ordinance where there's a requirement for 225-foot setbacks on properties that face two different streets? I mean, you know, I agree with you. This happens all too often. And what I see here is if we grant this one, okay, say we grant this one, then it will be very difficult not to grant any other person who has, you know, a lot that faces two different streets.
Well, in answer to your question, we did amend the ordinance in January of 2019 to make it very clear that the fence, you know, prohibition in the front yard also includes both front yards of a double frontage lot. There's no doubt that language is very specific now. It did not specifically mention fences before. Now it does.
Okay, so you're essentially telling us that any fence built before that date may or may not be grandfathered because the ordinance wasn't clear. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Other than fences in the vision triangle.
Right.
That was pretty clear.
Okay.
if it's not in the vision triangle. And understand a vision triangle is created by a driveway. I just don't think the people that worked here previously understood that.
Right, and since there's no driveways on either side, there's no vision triangles at this point in time. So you'd have.
Right, but we do have fences that are in the vision triangle that were
Oh, I know.
permitted, notwithstanding that part of the ordinance being clear.
Right.
There were a lot of erroneously issued permits here in the past, no doubt.
Okay. All right. Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Actually, Shalane has had her hand up several times and you haven't seen it, Rob.
Sorry.
Maybe Shalane, and then I have my question, please.
Okay, Ms. Marion, I'm sorry, I don't tend to look at you in the middle of the meeting. Sorry.
That's quite all right, and I never mind waiting either until all members of the committee have had their questions answered. But I did want to ask Ms. Silvera, if after the rest of the questions are asked, or whenever you think is most appropriate, if you could address the question that was asked about the precedent, because it looked like when Ms. Eric asked that question, you might have had something to say, and I was just going to ask at some point if you could address that. Thank you.
Ms. Silvera, would you like to address it now, or did I address it adequately when I responded?
I think you did address it, Mr. Chairman. Either it's legal non-conforming because it existed prior to the existence of the ordinance, or it's a violation and they haven't gotten caught or cited, or there's some consideration of it. I think you described it, Mr. Chairman, as grandfathered. I think, from staff, we would look at it as there's a question as to whether or not the permit application was looked at in the same light as the current staff would look at it. Either way, it really depends on, does it comply or not. None of those circumstances should be used as a basis for granting it.
Right.
Every application that you look at for a variance needs to be evaluated independently and compared to those 7 criteria that are within your ordinance. And so, although some past cases and certainly Texas jurisprudence, the case law that comes out of our courts should give you some guidance as to how you look at this. I would highly encourage you to focus on those factors that we have in our specific ordinance when you're considering whether or not to grant or deny a variance request.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Johnson.
2 questions. Have we had the applicant presentation yet? It seems like we're in our discussion phase with post Roy's presentation. Did I blink or something?
No, we were in the question and answer period with Roy's presentation, and that kind of bled into questions for Aaron, which is also staff presentation. So, but it is time.
Okay.
I'm just getting ready to force everybody to be quiet and let the applicant present their case.
So should I wait till we get to further discussion for my question with regard to the plat, the way it's laid out?
Is it a question to Roy?
Yes, it could be. Yes, it's a question to Roy.
Okay, then this is the time. Go ahead.
Okay, on the application as I read it, I'm hearing that they want the fence to be all the way back to the 25-foot line. And I read in there, I think I read in there that if they stay inside of the 20, if they're not allowed this extension of the backyard, then the fence would end up being only 6 feet away from the house. And but on the plat that's written here, it is 25.5 feet to the back of the house on this
Right.
plat. So I don't see where the fence line would be 6 feet away from the house.
It would be closer than that. And however, that's true of a site obstructing wood privacy fence. There are other fences that might be allowed that either still require a variance, but for example, an ornamental fence could be fabricated that would be acceptable for the dogs. That would not require a variance.
I got that part of it. I'm just trying to discern what their options are as far as the
Yeah.
location of the
If they
fence,
put a
because
wood
the number
privacy
should be
fence there, right, it's clear you cannot, there's no opening to let a dog out into that yard if it goes where it's supposed
from
to.
the back of the house,
Correct.
but
And
from the side of the house, there
well,
is.
there's
So
no openings there. There's no doors. I looked at the house in the permit documents. There are no doors on the side. They would actually have to let the dog out, put it on a leash and lead it into the yards.
Oh, because there's no front fence.
Well, even if they're either way, there's no openings on the side of the house that would allow you to have a door opening directly into a fence in either side yard. The fence would have to be, the dog would have to be led into the fence from another location, either through the front door or back door.
And because, and there's no, is there a back door opening at all on the back of the
There
house,
is,
the boggy
but
ford?
like I said, you would have to take the dog on a leash and put it in the yard. You couldn't let him directly into a yard.
To be compliant, Diane, I think this is what
I'm
he's
not
saying.
sure I'm understanding this. I'm sorry, Roy. I'm not sure I'm understanding this. So if that's the case, then the distance of the fence from the house is kind of moot with regard to leading the dog to the backyard. If I'm understanding that there is no back of the house opening, and there is no side of the house opening.
Right, if the fence were, the fence would have to be where the wall is in the back, which means, and since there's no doors on the side, you would have to take the dog either out the front door or the back door and then put him into a gate back into the yard.
Okay, so there is a back door. That's what I was trying to, there is a back door to the
There's no
backyard.
side
Okay,
doors is the relevant.
I got it. Okay. Right, I just want to make sure there was a back door. Then also it was brought up with regard to if Boggy Ford is expanded, it was in the, if Boggy Ford was expanded to 2 more lanes, which is foreseeable in how it's written for the planning of it, then that would mean the fence would be only like 6 feet away from the pavement. Right? And so my question is there an intermediate spot that they could put the fence, not the back of the house, but not the less than 6 feet from the house and not at the full 25 feet? Is there an option for us to allow them to put the fence at an intermediate where it would give, say, 14 feet of right of way for the expansion of Boggy Ford, but still allow more than a half a foot from
Yes.
the house of the backyard?
Right, and that is an option that I mentioned in the alternatives.
Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah,
Okay, I missed that part.
and I list all those options. That's one of them.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Any other questions for Roy? Ms. Air, go ahead.
okay. So getting back to the issue of precedence of not considering a precedence, and to your point, Mr. Durbin, about, okay, it's non-conforming, perhaps they have not been caught yet. If we were to deny their request, and since there is another fence that is consistent with their requested variance, if we were to deny it, and then they reported, for example, or somebody reported the non-conforming fence, and that non-conforming fence came to our board or another board asking for permission to have it stay where it is our board or another board going to be likely to tell that other fence that now they have to take it down and move it? And I think that should be something that we should consider while we're considering.
Well, if somebody put up a fence that's not in compliance, then yeah, I mean, and even this year, we've already done that. We've heard people that built fences that were not in compliance, and we denied their variance, and they either need to take them down or they're going to be cited for violating the ordinance.
Well, I just think we should keep in mind, this fence has been, the Southern Craftsman fence has been there probably at least a year. And if we would be willing to tell them, tell those people that they would have to move their fence to get a citation, that's fine. But I think we have to be prepared to treat this application consistently with that outstanding, non-conforming, and yet been there for quite a while.
Okay. All right, Aaron, does that your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure that our members understand that you can have a legal non-conforming fence, meaning it doesn't comply with our current ordinance, but it was not technically in violation of the previous version of the ordinance, or it existed before the ordinance existed. So that's a legal, you have a legal right to keep your fence that way if you're a legal non-conforming situation. The other situation is not in compliance, meaning you're in violation of our ordinance and you could be cited for that. And the citation would be issued. And those factors have nothing to do with the current application. So I don't want that to color your decision-making this evening. They're addressed either through the courts, through a citation process, or they're allowed to stay that way. And so I want to, again, implore you to apply the factors that are there for consideration of variances as that exists in our ordinance today.
Correct. And what another fence up 3-4 houses down or down the road is not one of the seven elements of granting a variance. So
Sounds like the 7 deadly sins to me, but.
Almost came out that way, didn't it? All right. All right. Any other questions, or can we let the applicant present her case? Is that Ms. White? Is that you?
Yes, it's Mary White and my husband Gregory White as well.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. We are asking for a variance for the privacy fence for a couple of reasons. One is that we do have dogs, and we do realize that different types of fences will allow for the dogs to stay in the yards. But we're also asking for the privacy fence because we are on Boggy Ford, and we do get a lot of light and noise that comes from Boggy Ford. When we originally purchased this lot, we did not realize exactly how much they were going to clear it. And they cleared the majority of the lot, and we were left with no cover in the back as far as a sound barrier or a light barrier. We do have a side street that comes out onto the back of corner of our property, and we do get a lot of light from that. Even though it's only a cul-de-sac, we still do get there's quite a bit of traffic that goes in and out of that cul-de-sac. And people turn around and so on and so forth. Our bedroom is on that wall along with the exit to the house. But really we do get a lot of light into the back bedroom of the house. So we were hoping to put that 6-foot privacy fence to filter out a lot of that light. We realize that the 6-foot privacy fence isn't an issue on any other side of our property. It's just that 25-foot setback in the back. We're willing to work with the board if we can have, some sort of compromise as to whether you want it, 20 feet back from the road, or maybe 25 feet back from the road. Just that 25-foot setback from the property line would literally make us 6 inches off of the back of our house. Our house would be barely legal the way it sits right now. I guess that is kind of our. Did you have anything else to say, hon?
Well, just no light would be great.
Yeah, so, and we realize that privacy is not necessarily a given, but we do want to try to limit the sound and the light coming off of Boggy Ford.
Understand? Okay. Discussion or questions to the applicants, excuse me. Mr. Kaysen.
We actually have some precedents for granting privacy fences in the setback because of light intrusion. We did that over on Paseo de Vaca, and we did another one close to the hospital. And I think the light and the noise to me reaches a level of an undue hardship. Now, you know, you say, well, is this property unique from all the other properties up and down Boggy Ford? Probably not, but those properties that are on Boggy Ford are certainly unique from the rest of the city of Lago Vista. I can't think of any other place where you have a 40-mile-an-hour heavily traveled road, the collector road in the city, you know, so I think a person has a right to some peacefulness in their backyard, not privacy, but to abate the noise and the light to the extent that they can with a privacy fence. So that's the way I'm looking at it. On the other side of it is if people come in on either side of them and put in, you know, a driveway onto Boggy Ford, which they can do, they may not want to, you know, probably not, but legally they can do it. Then they would have a problem with a fence all the way to their property line. So my position might be to have that fence 25 foot off of Boggy Ford, which would take care of any vision triangle. I think that's the distance of a vision triangle. And that would still, it looks to me, looking at the drawing, it would still allow them close to 20 foot.
Yes.
That's just the way I'm thinking of it. Now, I may not be right. It's kind of like, is the location of the property on Boggy sufficient to call it special circumstances unique to the property? I think I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Hoover.
Yeah, actually, my question's for Jim. Are you suggesting that it go back instead of 25-foot step back, you go another additional 5-foot step back and make it 20 feet or something like that? I mean, what are you actually suggesting? I was a little confused with that.
I think the defining measurement is from the road. So I'm wanting 25 foot on the road. Because if you set up a vision triangle, I think you're talking about 25 foot from the corner of the road, 25 foot in each direction.
Okay.
I mean, I'd take any technical expertise on that.
Roy, can you clarify what the shape of the vision triangle?
Yes, sir. He's absolutely correct.
Okay.
And, you know, I think my math came up with 6 instead of 5, but other than that foot, we agree.
Okay. Ms. Jonjo-Penn?
I was just going to ask for clarification as well, but I need more than what Roy just said, because I'm not understanding where the 25 foot setback from the house and how far that is from the edge of the existing road because I'm inclined to get to find an intermediate spot that would allow for the enlargement of Boggy Ford, but and allow more than 6 inches of backyard, you know, something in between. But I'm not sure what that's going to be from the logistical lines right now.
Like I said, we did the math on the width of the right of way at that location. It needed a 6-foot setback from the property line, which is 25 feet from the edge of the paving.
And we would be more than reasonable to accept that.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome in our eyes.
And that would allow for, if you put another lane on Boggy, then what would be the distance from
Right,
the
that's
new
it.
pavement?
We accounted for that.
But
And
I'm
then-
asking, what would be the distance from the new pavement to their fence in that case?
25 feet.
It would still be 25 feet from the
Right, from the
enlarged
wide.
road,
Yeah, it's
from the widening.
right. The right of way right now is like 27 feet or more, as I recall. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I had the city engineer's crew measure it for me to be sure. I scribbled a bunch of notes and did the math, and like I said, I came up with 6 feet after the widening.
So in that case, what would be the measurement that we would be talking about for an alternative fence location?
It would be 19 feet, okay, from the back, from the normal setback, or 6 feet inside the property line.
Okay. 6 feet inside the property line and 19 feet from
Well, 19 feet and a few inches from the back of the house.
on the back of the house. Okay, you said setback, so I'm having a lot. So from the back of the house. Okay, that's what I needed to know.
There are other more esoteric things like angling it near the side property lines that Mr. Cason's familiar with, that we've done in the past. But, you know, this works too.
Roy,
Yes, sir.
let's see, what is a type J fence?
That is the framed welded wire fabric.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's like a wood frame with pig wire in it?
Yeah, hog wire, I think, is the favorite
Yeah.
phrase, but technically it's welded wire fabric.
Okay. All right. And that, a type J fence would require a variance as well, correct?
It would as well, but it is non-sight obstructing, but won't help
Right.
you with the light and sound.
And an ornamental iron also is the same thing. It would also require a variance.
No, sir. The ornamental iron can be there. The
Ornamental iron, they
underlying
can do,
assumption of the ordinance is the ornamental iron looks good and the hog wire does not. Mr. Cason and I don't agree with that, but the hog wire looks good if you use thick enough wire. It
Right.
looks plenty good.
right,
It's the thin gauge wire that looks terrible.
right. Okay. When did you all buy this house?
We purchased it on March 31st. We closed of this year.
Okay. And was it a new build?
Yes, it was a brand new build. Fortunately, we did not have a choice as a say as to where the house was on the lot. We might have put it a little bit closer to High Drive, but or positioned it slightly differently on the plot. But that decision was made for us.
Okay.
There wasn't a lot of room to play. That house, it's not a very deep lot.
I was going to say it barely fits anyway, front to back. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Any other questions? And all right. Do we have a
Hey,
motion?
Ron?
Yeah.
Howard.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to, if everybody's done, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
To approve what?
Based
As-
on the 6 foot, so it basically would be what, 19 feet, Roy, from the back of the house? 6 foot inside the property line.
I think if you're looking at Roy's packet, are you talking about his potential alternative decision C?
I think it's,
Yeah,
I think
I'm
it's
talking
actually.
about like what
6
Jim
feet.
said, putting it 6 foot back, 6 foot more back, so that it's 19 feet from the back of the house instead of
option
25
B.
feet.
Option B,
Right.
a lesser
Option B,
encroachment, right?
We would prefer
Got it.
you say 6 feet from the property line, just for clarity.
6 feet from the property line?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me see. I'll try to restate it to see if I've got and see if I get it accurately. We have a motion to approve the variance or an alternate to the variance, which would allow the applicant to build a fence, a 6 foot wood fence to the to 6 feet of the property line. Is that state your motion accurately, Mr. Hoover?
That's 6 feet, 6 feet inside the property line, which leaves 19 feet from the back of the house. That's correct.
6. Okay, I believe that's 6 feet from the 6 feet from the property line. Okay,
But inside, it has to be inside.
it has to be what?
I would say inside for clarification. I agree with Howard. I think the word inside the property line is appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, inside the property line. Okay, I see what you're saying now. I didn't know where you wanted me to stick inside. Got it. All right.
And I could second that motion.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All opposed? Just me. All right. And I'm opposed for a couple of different reasons. Number one is I don't believe that there's been I don't believe there's special circumstances or conditions affecting the land involved to where strict applications of the chapter would deprive the applicant a reasonable use of their land. I think they could build a visible see-through fence that would be more appropriate and closer to conforming than you know, the lot is where it is. The fact that it's on Boggy Ford and the associated traffic and noise that comes with it, that to me is not a compelling reason to push the wishes of the city council aside for this particular instance. So we have 5 in favor and 1 against. And I believe, Ms. Solera, does that means it fails, correct? Do we need a quorum of? I know we have to have a supermajority, and when there's 8 here, that's 6. When there's 6 here, is that 5, or is it still 6?
It's 5.
It's 5? Okay. Then in that case, the variance is granted, allowing them to build a fence to 6 feet within their property line on the backyard side of their house.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And Roy, will that be reflected on the permit that we have already submitted, or do we need to refile permit submission?
No, ma'am, I will add that information to the permit file.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Board, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. My apologies. It was nothing personal. It's a
gotta
crummy
follow
job.
The rules. We get it.
Crummy job sometimes. Okay. Let's see. We'll move on. Any future agenda items? If not, I am open to a motion to adjourn. Howard, is that a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Any second?
Second,
All right. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you all.
everyone.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next month.
Good evening.